Welcome to the first Let's Be Honest for the Nintendo Switch. This is a segment where I go through the pros and cons of a game I've been playing or a system I recently own. You know, after having the Switch for a few months, it's time to see what it's all about. I'm gonna walk you through basically the experience right from the start, from the moment I opened it up. Now, looking at the box of the Switch, you could tell Nintendo has definitely gone for a more mature, more adult theme for their console. The pictures in the front show the different ways you can use the Switch. The flexibility basically is displayed. Basically the advertisement, what you've been seeing in commercials, what you've been seeing on the internet. Just showing how flexible the system actually is. Right from the start, you can just see this displayed on the box, and it's a nice box for it. It really tries to show a more mature side of Nintendo. And getting into it, the first thing I took out of the box and was looking at was the controllers, the Joy-Cons. Now, we all know the Joy-Cons are basically these wireless controllers, and one of the things that they do that makes the Switch very special is they snap on to a portable screen, which makes the whole system into a portable, makes it into a handheld system. But feeling out the controls on their own, they were nice. They felt sturdy, which is not what I expected. You know, when you look at pictures or you look at what the Nintendo Switch on commercials, you would think that you know, these controllers, the way it looks, they feel like they might be cheap, they might be plasticky, but of course they are plastic, but at the same time they feel like they're sturdy plastic, very thick plastic, like they won't break easily. The buttons are very small. If you played the 3DS, some of their handhelds, you probably know that some of their handhelds have really small buttons, and which is not a big deal for the handhelds, but looking at it, knowing that it's supposed to be a console as well, you'd think there'd be bigger buttons, but there isn't. And yeah, it's awkward at first. You know, when I slid them in, you hear that little snapping noise, which is very satisfying. You know, you feel that click, and it feels well put on. It feels like it's not going to move too much. It's going to be in one spot on that screen. Yeah, they felt good. They did feel awkward because, of course, with the buttons being so small, so are the bumpers and the triggers on the top, which can lead to some issues with particular games. Like, I've just recently been playing Fortnite on the Switch, portably and docked, but mostly portable. Yeah, and in handheld mode, it's good, but it takes a lot of getting used to. You know, using the bumpers, aiming with the left trigger, shooting with the right, because they are small and they're not what you're used to if you have a PS4 or an Xbox One. But once you do, you know, take the controllers, take the Joy-Cons off, you can also slide them into a grip that comes included with the Switch. Now, this is your way of using the Switch as a traditional console. You know, once you slide them into this plastic grip, they feel like a traditional controller, like what you would expect from, you know, a PS4 or an Xbox. So, while in this mode, you know, while you have it put into the grip, you know, it's still overall very small. It feels. Here's the thing. It does get better after a while. You get used to it. But certain games definitely work better than others. I think exclusives, the controller is fine, but other games you definitely might want to go out and get that Pro controller. But like I was saying, you know, for exclusives for your average games, it works well enough, and it's not bad. It's a little lighter than you would expect. It's a little lighter than your usual controller. It's also a bit oddly shaped, so the placement of the analog sticks can be a little odd, a little weird, but yeah, you get, like I said, you get used to it, and it's not bad. I wouldn't say you immediately have to get a Pro controller, but like I said, you know, it's, some people will definitely want to get that immediately. But what I would say you do need, moving on to the screen, is you do need a screen protector. Before I even used the system, I already had the screen protector prepped and ready to go. I was like, before I was telling myself I'm not even going to use this system unless I have a screen protector, because the screen is made of plastic, and if you had anything with a plastic screen before, you'd know that it's very prone to scratches, fingerprints, smudges, and everything else you can think of. The dust builds up on it. So I went ahead and just got a glass screen protector off of Amazon, which they're really cheap. You can get one for less than $10. It's well worth it, and it makes the experience even better when you're playing in handheld, because you don't want to have all those fingerprints on the screen or dust. And the glass screen protector I got very much solved that problem and still looks very good. So getting back to the Joy-Cons real quick, I want to mention one of the things I really liked about the Switch, which is that, you know, the Joy-Cons themselves, they're wireless. You can use them outside of the grip. You just have one in each hand, kind of like the way the Wii used to work. It's basically has everything Nintendo's consoles has had packed in from the last 2 or 3 different consoles. It has them all just brought into this smaller form factor in this hybrid Switch console. So you get basically the best of all worlds. You get games that have those motion controls that can do the separate hands, but now you don't have that wire in between, which made the Wii kind of a little bit of a hassle, because you did have the wire going from one to the other. You couldn't really be as comfortable as you wanted to, because there was a limit to how far you can stretch the controllers apart, but now they're completely wireless. And getting to the point, because they're completely wireless, they each have their separate built-in batteries, which have a great battery life, 20 plus hours from what I'm hearing, and so far it seems to be exactly that. So what I like is, normally, you know, on a PS4 or on an Xbox, you run out of charge on a controller, you have to basically either plug your controller in, or, you know, or switch out the battery pack, which means you have to worry about having a battery pack charged, or if in the case of PlayStation, if you don't have a second controller, you have to stop and put the controller to charge, and, you know, then maybe you're stuck not playing anything until it's charged. So this makes it right away, so you don't have to worry about that, because if you're running out of charge, you have the controllers in the grip or outside of the grip, and you're just holding one in each one. If they start running out of charge, if you want to just put them to charge, you can just easily slip them back on the screen, and they'll charge right there on the dock attached to the screen, which is cool. But what I like the most is that you can actually just put them into the screen itself, pull it out, and play in handheld mode, and the controls will charge while you're in handheld mode. The screen itself will charge the controllers while it has life in it. So it really makes it so you don't have to stop playing, which is not something you usually, you know, yeah, I mean, it can be done, but, you know, it's much more hassle-free, and it doesn't require anything else out of the box, like the Xbox One controller, where you'd have to buy battery packs or the batteries that you can charge. There's nothing else required. Everything that comes with the Switch feels like you get a complete package. You know, that advertised variety of how you can play it, how you can use it, and it really does bring forth, you know, the promise of the Switch, and in a lot of ways the promise of what the Vita wanted to do, because we will be mentioning the Vita in here because there are some points of comparison. But moving on to the UI, the UI on the Switch it's good. It's simple. It's to the point, which I like. I like the fact that you can just get on there, you know, do what you gotta do, and go straight to your games. And really, what adds to it, and this is a very big pro, is because the system is cartridge based. Being a handheld, it is cartridge based. Everything is snappy, right? That's, you know, everything loads up quickly. You know, when you get into a game, it loads quick. It's ready to go. You're just in and out of games. And what adds to that more than anything is the fact that the system is designed. It feels designed to be left on standby. Once you put in the dock, you know, now with other systems, I usually worry about that. You know, is it going to heat up the system like the PS4 or the Xbox? Is it really safe to leave it in standby? But with the Switch, it lets you know immediately this is meant to be on standby, because even if you turn off the Switch completely, which you can do, you can power it down. The second you put it into the dock, it starts to power up again, because it's kind of designed to be left in the dock on standby, which means that you always have that quick, you know, just quick boot up straight to your game. And when you match that together with the cartridge, which makes it just load faster and do everything faster, it really is just the best pick up and play console you could ever have. You know, being cartridge based just adds that quickness that you used to get with old systems, going back to the original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, where you just put in the cartridge, the game is just ready to go. There's not much to it. And mixed with the UI being as simple as it is, it really does just get you in and get you out as fast as you want to. But you do have to mention, of course, that there isn't much aside from aiming you can actually do on the Switch, because there aren't that many apps. While it does have Hulu, and it probably has other apps, maybe I haven't really looked too much into it, but it doesn't have Netflix, and there's definitely no YouTube. There's definitely a lot of missing features, like a web browser, you know, missing features and apps that you would expect to be there, and they're just not. And the fact that we're a year in or more now, you know, it's not looking good. You would expect that this would already have been there. Now, does it really affect me? No, not at all. I mean, I play consoles, I play this. I mostly wanted a Switch to play these games. I'm not really... Would it be useful? Sure. It would be useful to have Netflix on there. But it's not really a deal breaker, and I do see it coming in the future. It's just not looking... it's just something that should have already been there. But it is not. But getting back into the screen, it's nice and big, which really does help sell that console experience on the go. Because when you use the Vita, you know, it's a decent sized screen, but it really doesn't convey the same feelings to really just sell you on being in that game, you know, a little bit more immersed. The text in the game is going to be bigger. You know, it's just overall nice to have a big screen to really... Oh, of course, and you have to mention the controllers being separated and being attachable also means that you get the full rumble features of playing on console but on the go. So that also just completely comes together to really just sell, you know, to really just give you that experience that the Vita tried to do. This one really tries to pick up dust off that promise and just bring it forth. That's about it for the pros. So let's get into some of the cons for the Switch. And this was one of the things I noticed. One of the first things to really put a damper in the experience was I noticed that the signal on the right stick, I know a lot of people talk about the left stick being the one that desyncs, but the right stick, when I was aiming the camera, it would either stop and then all of a sudden it would just move. It would either, hitch or skip as I was turning, and it was just not working properly all the time, and this would happen constantly. And of course I thought to myself, this is probably this is a problem because my Switch was not positioned high on my shelf. It's at the bottom, and because of the way my room is set up and the way my bed is, there's no clear view of the system itself, of the dock. So I said, please don't be the case, but yes it was. As soon as I picked up the dock, put in a higher position, which was inconvenient, suddenly there was no issues with it picking up the signal, with the controls working well, with the inputs being on point, which kind of sucks, not being able to place it, because, and that's the thing though, I'm not even far from the Switch. I'm not far at all. It's not more than a few feet away. For it to not be able to pick up the signal just because it's directly not in view of the console, of the dock, it's kind of ridiculous, in 2018, that's happening, that the Switch has that issue. Getting into the battery life, the 3DS was not amazing. Going from the DS or any of the other handhelds, the Game Boy Advanced, all these other portable systems, all these other handhelds that Nintendo's made, they were known at one point for great battery life. And then all of a sudden, here we are, the 3DS, it's just terrible battery life, and the Switch is just worse. So this, of course, varies between different games. The more demanding the game is, the more it's going to suck that battery life down. But some games really don't do as much. The screen itself has obviously some settings where you can turn on the brightness. It also has a battery saving setting, which helps. But and I do want to mention as a plus, the screen on the Switch is nice and bright. It's a very bright screen, which some of the older portables had this thing where it would only be very bright if you plugged it into charge. But the Switch, thankfully, is bright without the need of having it plugged in or anything. It's a very bright display. It also has very good sound coming through it to the speakers, and when it comes to earphones, of course, it sounds decent. It may be lower than some people would like. When you plug in your headphones, you might expect it to be a little bit higher. The sound to be louder, but it's good. It gets the job done. It's not too bad. But yes, getting back into the battery life. Yes, the battery life is not a deal breaker, because for me, I completely use a Switch at home. I never take it out. I know how some people really do like to just go all over and have their handhelds with you, but I really see the Switch as a very good multitasking device, so I can do something, maybe watch something on TV while playing a game. It's very just convenient. Oh, and speaking of that, I do want to mention that a lot of these handhelds, they are designed in such a way, like when you're trying to use the controls, that they feel better when you're sitting down and you're kind of like looking down at the device. But if you're laying on your back, maybe laying on a couch or on your bed, because that's how I like to use handhelds, when I'm tired or I want to lay in bed. usually the angle you would hold the Switch up, or any handheld, they're not really designed to be the most comfortable in those angles, which I find a little funny because I think more people use it that way than you would think. But they still don't feel great when you're just laying back in bed. It doesn't feel as nice as if you were sitting down just looking down. The controls don't, like, your hands don't feel as well positioned. They don't feel designed and shaped around, you know, just at being at that angle. But the screen itself, let's talk about the quality of the screen. Now, the pros of the screen itself is that the screen is sharp. The screen is nice and sharp. When I first saw a game, I saw the menus, I first played Zelda, it looked good. You know, it's probably one of the better screens I've seen on a handheld, but I do have to get into the cons of the screen, which is where, compared to the Vita, it does lack a little bit, because color-wise, the Vita is a very, it has an OLED screen if you have the original Vita, and that screen is, oh man, those colors just pop. And while the colors look good on the Switch, they just don't have that pop. And it's especially noticeable, and this is a problem, when you actually look at the games running on your TV. When you have it in docked mode, they just don't look as nice. They don't look as polished. They don't look as smooth. They definitely don't look as colorful. On your screen, these games just pop when you put them on your TV. But on handheld mode, the colors just looked washed out. And getting into the resolution side of things, the screen itself is a 720p display, but not a lot of the games actually are displayed at 720. When I first played Zelda, I'm like, this looks great. This looks sharp. The color is okay, and you still get that sense of you are getting that full console experience, but in a handheld version of it. But as soon as you move on to other games, like for example, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and I also played a demo for Toad, you realize that it has a dynamic resolution, and I know this because I do watch Digital Foundry and I've seen the comparisons. It has a dynamic resolution, and once you get a game that does not run at the full 720, it does impact the look of the game. It does look blurry. It definitely loses that polish, that sheen, that that charm, that Nintendo charm that you get when you play this. When you put this on your TV screen, it looks awesome. These games look great. Now I have a 1080p screen. I've heard some people don't like how it looks maybe on their 4K display, because I'm guessing that the Switch does not have an upscaler for a 4K TV, but on a 1080p screen, it looks great. I'm saying all this, of course, because I never had a Wii U, so this is the first HD Nintendo system that I'm looking at. I'm actually seeing these Nintendo games running in HD, and they look great on my TV. But it kind of sucks to see that they aren't really always the same experience when in handheld mode. So far, most of the time, I end up playing it on my TV because I'm just like, this game looks substantially better when in docked mode. And I was thinking, when I first got the Switch, I was thinking I was going to end up using it more as a portable system than anything, just to multitask and to watch a show or something while playing it. But it turned out to be the opposite, which I was not expecting. So to wrap it up, I do gotta say, the Switch is a very well designed console. You can go as far as to say that, the people who designed it the engineers behind it, you can say that they're definitely geniuses of design. They definitely knew what they were doing, and a lot of the limitations that come from the Switch are probably due to, you know, certain budget restraints, having to make the system a certain price. So maybe that affected the battery life and everything. You know, it's making a system with all its features and all its, you know, it's a balancing act. You know, Nintendo doesn't want to lose too much money on the system. Nintendo doesn't want to make a system and not have it be a good value for the customer. It's definitely a balancing act, and I think Nintendo has actually pulled it off this time around, because I do not think that some of their past systems have had that balance. But let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you liked the video, leave a like. It was definitely one of my longest by far. And don't forget to subscribe and share the video out. Catch me on Twitter at the same name, Honest2Critic. As always, saying, if you're gonna be a critic, be honest. And catch you next time.